Okay, today we're going to look at a Evergreen Automation top dry control or ultra dry controller. Right here would be the main control screen. This would be the HMI. You would need to have this in a control building or a dry environment is recommended. Right here we're on the temp dry run screen. We have an alarm. We ran out of corn. Filling timed out. So we ran out of corn, so it shut down. So we're gonna go to settings. When you would first start your panel up, this would be the first thing you see. You can set your dump time, whether you're running auto batch or auto flow, dump counter reset. This here would be to turn on the manual switch out at the actuator, for if you need to adjust where the dump chutes are when they're up. We want our burner to shut off while we're dumping, so I have burner on off. I have it off when open. So you go to next. We got our load settings. We can run 3 different stages. We can turn them on, or we can on auto with all of them activated, or we can deactivate one if we want. If we have 2 wet bins, we can deactivate the 1 wet bin if we need to. We have our auto wet grain timer. Our auto load is off at this point. If I would turn that on, our load would start filling. We hit our next page. We have our burner settings. We have our run timer. They want you to shut down every 24 hours to check the dryer to make sure there's no plugged chutes or issues of that sort up top, which is not usually an issue in a Lambton Ultradry because their chutes are quite large. We have our Plenum Max Temperature, our grain max temperature, our Plenum set point. Been running a pretty low temperature because we have fairly dry corn. Our aeration fan, we can run that with a timer or controlled where it's shutting off with the other fan, or we can have it on auto. Then we go into our dry type. We can run it on time and temperature dry, or we can run it on time dry or temperature dry or finish dry for our last batch. I always run them on temp dry when I'm running auto flow, and then we set our plenum temperature. We set our set temp would be our grain temp. So at this, well, the way we're set up here, when our grain temp hits 90 degrees, it is dumped, the fan and heater shut off, and it dumps for 3 seconds. Normally, if we would be into wetter corn, we would dump for 4 seconds. But with putting 16-17% corn in the top like we are right now, we are only dumping for 3 seconds because it flows so easily. This would be where you would start your dryer. This would be where you would start your load. And then if we go here, this would be our main monitoring screen. This is where this is like screensaver. If you don't touch the controls for a while, it'll automatically just go here, because you can't mess anything up on here. You can't change any settings. This is just a monitoring. You can see what your load is doing, your plenum, your grain temperature, which is your overall temperature. That's your moisture control. Another thing I want to show you is if we go into grain temp probes, this shows us the 4 grain temp probes. This uses a 3-wire RTD for watching the grain temp, so it is accurate temperatures. They're very, very accurate. I've started 5 of these style controls this year. Every controller, we ran the same grain temp to get the same moisture out the bottom within 5 degrees. So the variation in temperatures is very minimal and way more accurate with the 3-wire RTDs. Okay, moving on from there, this would be our terminal box. This would normally be mounted to the side of the bin. This is where all your sensors are wired into, that does all your controls. Your PLC is in there, that runs everything. There's only a Cat5 cable and 3 wires that go between those 2 boxes. Now let's go out and look at the actuator. Out here we have the actuator. This is what would run the dump chutes. Cable goes up to run the dump chutes, comes down, goes through rollers. That way it don't rub on the edge of the steel. Comes in, we have a plexiglass here so we can see in. You can see it's just a beam clamp on there that hits the limit switches, and that can easily be accessed to adjust it if needed to have our dump chutes dump how far they pull up. This would be our switch for adjusting that. We would turn that on the beginning of this video where I showed turning on the dump chute controller. There was a button that turns yellow when you turn it on. That's for turning this on to manually adjust your dump chutes. And this would be your box that you would wire in your aeration fan to and runs your dump chute controller. It's all generic, built with common parts, all Schneider electrical parts. Every electrical part is Schneider. In here you got ball door motor, you got it's kind of hard to see in here, don't think we can, but we just have a standard ball door motor, no VFD. It's everything is parts that you can buy at your local parts store instead of having to get from the manufacturer. So if you have any more questions on it, let me know.